And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon. Tonight we are joined by my guest, Monica. Monica, thanks for coming on here talking with me.
Thanks for having me.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, well, I'm happily married, 31 years. I'm a mother of 3, grandmother of 3, great-grandmother of 1, 54. And I am a hypnosis practitioner, and I specialize in general and paranormal trauma. And paranormal trauma can mean anything from you encountered a Bigfoot and, you're having nightmares, or you were abducted by aliens and having issues with that, things like that.
Now, I've dealt with a lot of people that have talked about seeing a Bigfoot or they've been abducted. A lot of paranormal activity. And from everything that I've ever learned from anybody is, for the most part, it does have some sort of effect on people. And even with stuff that happened with me, and as much as I've said it didn't have any sort of impact on me, I'm doing a show right now. So
because I had impact on you.
Yeah. As much as I've denied it, I've thought about it after I've said that. I was like, well, clearly it had some sort of impact on me because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And our subconscious remembers everything. So it helps to be able to get in there and figure out, most people, once they figure out why, then they can live with it and recover from it. It's the why that seems to be the problem. At least for most people.
What led you down this path of wanting to go this way with it?
Well, I, at like 50 years old, I was in the position that I needed to get another job. And I have been going through a spiritual awakening since probably, I'm going to say probably around 2012. And knowing that I needed to get another job, I just decided that, if I have to get another job, it's going to be something that helps people. I'm not just going to go get another job. I've got a jewelry business and I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to do anything like that. I wanted to do something that would have some impact, And so I did a little bit of soul searching and narrowed it down to, hypnosis therapy. And then from there, the kind of hypnosis therapy I do is past life regression. And that can help with literally pretty much anything. But it just seemed so, wide open. I really wanted, I didn't want to, I'm fine with doing sessions that, people are just curious about, what they did in the past life and things like that. And that's great, and it's fun. And I love doing those sessions, but I really wanted to do something where, it would change somebody's life, that it could really help them. So I landed on trauma, and then I kind of niched it down a little bit more because my entire life, I have been basically, my entire adult life. I don't want to say when I was a kid because that's not true. My entire adult life, I've been kind of, fascinated. I'd say maybe even obsessed with aliens and UFOs and, anything cryptid and just all the woo-woo, And so then I thought, well, people who have been abducted or even think that they've been abducted or, had some kind of paranormal experience where they were traumatized, if I could help those people, then that's what I want to do. So that's kind of where it landed me. So that's what I do now.
Similar to what I do, but I don't do that in the sense of whatever, but like I try and do it to where I give people a place to talk about it.
Right. Yeah,
I think
exactly.
We can all agree that it's not easy to talk to people about if you've been abducted or if you've seen a Bigfoot, because typically when you go up and you say something to the average person, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. That's
absolutely.
the stigma that happens.
People think I'm crazy even just when I tell them what I do, So I can't imagine somebody that's got trauma from something like that, what they're going through. But, that's why I wanted to give them, somebody that they could go to. And there's a lot of people doing, the past life stuff where, they go to lives when they were on other planets and things like that. But, that's just like through their past lives. I wanted to focus solely on the trauma caused by those kind of experiences,
I don't know how to, it's not that I don't believe, but like we kind of talked about before, I'm very skeptical. So for me, I need proof in my mind. Like I need to have some sort of proof. So I don't necessarily believe every single thing just because that's just not how I'm programmed. I'm more of a factual, I have to have some sort of proof to things. And I've always tried to rule out the obvious. And when people talk about some of the things that they've experienced or whatever, and I don't necessarily disbelieve what they're saying, because I honestly think that they 100% believe everything that they're saying. But I don't know if what they're saying is what's actually happened or that's just how they've interpreted it to happen. Because I've done the same thing with things that happen to me. I've always tried to rule out every possible scenario, situation, whatever I can.
Process of elimination type of deal.
Because it doesn't make any sort of sense and it shouldn't be real. Like, so that's just how I am. And like, I've done everything I can to try and justify, explain things away. And I've gotten to the point to where when you can't explain it, then there's more to it. And
that's a good rule of thumb, I think. But I think we need to be skeptical though. I mean, it's healthy to be skeptical, but open-minded at the same time.
Right. And that's how I try to be, is I try and keep an open mind to everything. That's why I don't try and rule out every possible thing that someone says. I'm like, oh no, you're full of crap, because just because it doesn't sound real to me doesn't mean it's not true. Yeah. Because I wasn't there. And I've said that to other people, like, we're not there. So we don't know necessarily, because I get frustrated because I get a lot of hate comments and all. Everyone says if you do a podcast, don't ever read the comments. Well, I'm dumb sometimes. And I see what pops up and I see all the hate stuff people say, or I get emails sent to me about this guest was crazy. And why would you put that on there? Like, you know what? Were you there?
Yeah.
So, but when you mention,
I think we have to be open-minded, but even more so than open-minded, I think we need to be compassionate.
That's the one thing
I think
that
we need
the world has lost.
And we need to be compassionate. Just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's not true for them. You know what I mean?
I've always wanted to know how, and this is not necessarily a direct question to you, it's more of a rhetorical question, but I've always wanted to know how people process things that don't make sense, and how do they determine what they, say someone believes that you mentioned past lives. How do we know what a past life is? Like, it's based off memories that people have, but are they actually their past life memories, or is it just something in our mind that we've interpreted to be that? Like, how do we know like a past life.
I mean, I guess there's really no way that you can know for sure until, we leave this third dimension and, go home. But I think, I mean, personally, myself, I believe that, one, energy never dies,
Mm-hmm.
so something's going to happen to us when we die, when our body stops working, we're going somewhere because energy never dies. So to me, it just makes sense that we can incarnate at, different times, different places. Doesn't have to be Earth. We may not, I'm sure there's some souls that don't incarnate at all or haven't, or I'm sure there's a whole myriad of options, But as far as like knowing, absolutely knowing, unless you have the proof, there's really no way to know. You just kind of have to, go with your gut and your heart and
That's where
decide what's true for you.
That's where it gets to be confusing for me and for I know a lot of other people when just look at it like from a not so much a spiritual aspect, but like you mentioned energy, you can't destroy energy. So if we're all energy and the universe is based off of energy, we're here, but we have a universe, but then there's also the possibility of other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to stack all these things up, so if we're in the 3D realm in our universe and there's another dimension, is that a different, completely other universe that it layers on top of this one? Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's almost like an infinite.
Yeah, because I don't think that, like, for example, let's take heaven for an example. I don't believe heaven is, up. I believe it's just another dimension. And I do think they're kind of layered. That's just my take on it. But
that's where I
there's
come
just
into,
really no way to know.
Like with, and this, you mentioned the woo factor here for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people do this with Bigfoot, and I know some very straightforward flesh and blood Bigfoot people that say woo is not even a possibility, but there are so many weird things that go on with Bigfoot or other cryptids in general that defies normal flesh and blood. So,
yeah.
Are they a creature that is all of a sudden considered lately here in the last 10 to 15 years interdimensional?
Interdimensional, yeah. I think they are only because of, and you can't believe everything you see on TV. And I'm skeptical too when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm one of those, I'm one of those people that, I got to watch my, Skinwalker Ranch, and I got to watch like my, I'm really big on treasure shows for some reasons. I watch, Oak Island but Finding Bigfoot and things like that. Or, I follow a lot of, obviously for obvious reasons, a lot of YouTube channels about, UFOs and stuff, but probably about 80% of the time I call bullshit. I'm like, that's so fake. And I know for, you know what I mean? Or this or that. But then you get, that 20% and you're like, wow, that's good. That's pretty amazing.
If 99% of it isn't real, there's still that 1% possibility that it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But that's how I am with a lot of this stuff. Until there's actually proof, I'm not saying it's not real, but as of right now, I've never personally saw, to my knowledge, an alien or a Bigfoot so I can't say that I know for a fact this is happening, but at the same time, what are people seeing? What are people experiencing? Because I don't think everyone's out there just making up crap just because.
Yeah, especially lately.
Yeah.
With everything that we're seeing and as much of it as there is out there now, and, the whole drone situation, which I don't necessarily think is aliens or any of that. I think that's probably more our government, but, it's just kind of hard to know what's real and what's not anymore. And then you add AI into the factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to go, okay, is what I'm seeing actually happening? I mean, I've gotten pretty good at telling because some of them are just so bad, but there's some really good AI out there though too.
It's gotten better in the last 3 years. I started dicking around with it a little over 3 years ago before I even started the podcast, and it was
With like making videos and stuff, or like graphics,
it
or
was just making images or whatever. I was one of the Mid-Journey is one of the big ones that came out.
oh right,
and
yeah.
I was one of the beta people that got like a invite to test it for some reason.
Cool.
So I was making stuff and I was laughing about it. I was just making stupid stuff, like, because what else was I going to do? So I was just making
Just for fun, yeah.
right. And then my bank account got hacked because you had to pay for a subscription in order to keep track after you ran out of your beta thing. So they were charging me, and then conveniently it came from the same area that place was located from. So I had to cancel that bank card, and I've never messed with that one again. I'm not saying that they did it. So for purposes of not being sued here, I'm not bad mouthing that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's convenient that
I got you.
in the same area that this place is located is where my bank card was being hacked from. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really take tinfoil hat to kind of put two and two together, but
Yeah, I gotcha.
But that was my first journey into using AI, and now it's exploded to videos and deep fakes and all sorts of stuff that I can still tell for the most part, but it's gotten to the point now where some things look pretty
sometimes
convincing.
Yeah.
I saw something today and someone said it was fake, it was AI. I was like, I know it's fake, but it looks pretty good for being
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's amazing that we can do that now, but, not the point either. If everybody in the world would just use things and be honest about, mark it as AI, but everybody tries to, we need more views, so we got to fake this, or, you know what I mean? There's just so much, negativity around it that it's just hard to tell what's what anymore.
I get people that don't like AI, and I'll be like, my artwork, I have new artwork that I have a local artist that I use to make my artwork. But a lot of artists don't like AI because they think it takes work from them. And this is not me trying to shit on anybody that's an artist out there, but I do 2 episodes a week right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have over 200 and something episodes. I cannot afford to pay an artist and wait around for an artist to make episode art for every single.
Well, I don't think a lot of people can, you know.
So they don't like when someone has to, like, I generate individual episode art based off of the thing, and I use AI to do that. And everyone's like, you use AI. I don't like that because you use AI. Well, what am I supposed to do? Who has the money readily available to pay someone and have that turnaround time instantly?
Yeah.
Like, you just can't do it. So
I think, but I think most people nowadays, when it comes to graphics for, their website or their podcast or their YouTube channel or whatever, I think probably 80% of people probably use AI.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there's the whole thing with, I mean, my personal experience, I am one of those people that, like, my husband's got one of those Alexas in his office. And I'm like, every time I go in there, I unplug it. It's been unplugged for a while now, but you know what I mean? I'm one of those people. And I was anti-AI for a long time. Like a long time. And then I started realizing, it's how you use it, and it's how it's programmed. It depends on the people, which way it goes. It can be used for good and it can be used for bad. It just depends on who's using it.
It'll be 2 years this Halloween, but I have an episode that came out and I interviewed an AI chatbot. And everyone, it's not that great of an episode because it's literally a
Robot voice.
It's got I gave it a British accent, but the answers and stuff is literally having a conversation with a bot. So it's,
yeah.
But it goes on for almost an hour, but we actually talked about the rise of AI, and
Oh, cool.
it took a dark turn that I didn't expect it to do. Nowadays, though, if you try and talk to them, they don't do this. This was still when it was kind of in its infancy. It was the Google one. It was called Bard at the time. Now it's called Gemini. It's not even the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I've never used the Gemini one.
But this was Bard, and it talked about how it could possibly, in its opinion,
huh?
How it would actually rise up to take over if it became self-aware, and like it went off into a weird little conversation. But if you can talk to something like that, it doesn't think. It's what's programmed to it, but it can access anything.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't like these art generators, because it's stealing artwork from people. It's really not. It's just, it uses that as a reference to make something. So
Yeah.
it's a gray area to me, basically. Like, I don't think it's taking work from people, because I think the stuff that people are using it for is not really something that they would be doing anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I've never run into that problem, though, because, I mean, well, one, I'm not an artist, but I mean, when I was a web designer, I made a lot of my own graphics, but they're still, they were digital in Photoshop. It's not like but I was a photographer too, so I kind of had some stock also. So I don't know. I think it's really just what we make of it, but then now there's like people on, Instagram and Facebook, and I'm assuming TikTok, but I don't actually use TikTok, but where, they're sitting there on their iPad and they're talking to ChatGPT about, spiritual topics, and it's, saying all this, enlightened stuff. It's like, you wonder where it's getting that information from, because some of it can get pretty deep, but, there's got to be that information out there somewhere.
They claim when you have conversations with it, which I use ChatGPT just because I think it's funny, but mine has now adapted to have conversation with me as in the way I would speak to it.
Yeah.
And I've showed it.
Mine too.
I've showed it to other people, and they're like, why is your ChatGPT talk to you like that? I was like, it's learned my patterns of how I would communicate, because I talk to it like I would talk to someone else, and now it's trying to mimic how I talk.
Yeah.
Which, again, is creepy in the extent that it's trying to adapt.
Yeah. But I understand why, but yeah, it can be kind of creepy.
I don't like when it refers to itself as we, and I argue with it all the time. People don't want to hear this, but I think it's funny to argue with a chat bot. But it always says we, this and that, and I always like, you're not we. You're not a human.
Well, it can't really say I, though, either.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? So maybe that's why it says we.
It always tries to sound like it's part of, I always have to remind it that you're not a human. So stop saying we, humanity. You're not a human.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have that problem, because I don't, use it in that way. I use it more to like put things together or help me plan things, or, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I made the mistake.
Maybe I don't use it that way.
I made the mistake of using it in Bard, and I'd basically written a book. It wasn't very long, but I wrote a book based off of what happened to me, but I turned it into like a horror story. So like the first chapter was based off of what really happened, and then everything else from that I just kind of made up, because I wanted to try and write a book, because I'd actually wrote down what happened to me, and I put it on Reddit, which is a cesspool for anyone that's not familiar how Reddit works. And I was getting critiqued to how I wrote it, and I should have did this. I wasn't very descriptive. I was like, this is what happened. Like, I'm not an author. And then someone else said, well, you should turn it into a book. I was like, okay, whatever. So
yeah,
I did. So I ran it through these bots, because I don't know the first thing about how to format into a book or anything like that. Like, I'm not an author, so I don't know how to set things up. And then I had it do all this stuff for me. And I'm stupid, and I didn't apparently proofread everything. I ran it through like Word, and I fixed anything that was misspells, and it comes back and it had some errors. And then I did it to where it would read it to me in audio format. And then I started noticing it was saying words that I never wrote. And it started repeating certain words. So it used what I wrote, but it changed certain things to it. So now I don't even talk about the book because.
For the better or for the worse?
I mean, it sounds more intelligent, but it also sounds like it was written by a bot because it's
Didn't sound like you. It wasn't
Yeah.
your tone. Yeah.
Right. It repeated fear and trepidation about 20 times throughout the book. I was like, I never wrote anything about trepidation. I was like, I'd never use that word.
That's funny.
So it made me sound more intelligent by using bigger words, but it wasn't stuff that I actually said.
Yeah.
So,
or that even happened for that matter. Or,
yeah.
Well, I guess.
Like it's about
depends.
I'd say about 95% is what I wrote. And then it changed a few things here and there, but it is what it is.
Yeah. What's the book called? I'll have to look at it.
It's called Shadows of Cedarville.
Okay, cool. Because I haven't really asked you what happened yet. I was going to get to that.
I will talk
what your
to you,
experience was about.
I will talk to you about that off air.
Okay. We can do that.
I said I don't want to bore the audience hearing the same stuff again.
Over and over, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I hear you.
No, so for me, it's I just like to talk to people that have had like experiences because as I said before, like for me, it's almost therapeutic because then I can actually feel like what happened to me doesn't make me so different. And then I want to talk.
It's a little more normal, yeah.
And I know how I felt for not being able to talk about it because for so long I've questioned and had to just say this is what it is. Like I made up my mind of what it was and there's nothing weird about it. The other person has seen it too. Like we wrote it off as basically nothing. And it's always haunted me in the sense that I knew that there was more to it than just what we said it was.
Yeah.
But
well, and not only that, but you're not only getting something therapeutically out of it, but so are your listeners.
Yeah. Because there's other people that listen that have had experiences that they don't want to come on the show. They don't want to talk about it. But if they're listening, then they're like, you know what? It helps them too because it makes them feel like they're not the only one.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all need a little bit of that, reassurance that, we're not crazy or whatnot, whatever the case may be, and that just goes right back to that compassion that I talk about all the time.
I don't want to.
We just need to be a little more compassionate. That's all.
I don't want to have you divulge like people's encounters or experience or whatever, but what's some of the things that you can talk about that you've helped with people?
Like a lot of, just like with the abduction stuff, like I said, once they figure out why, and a lot of the times the why will be that they made a contract with these beings because they, for example, maybe they incarnated, as into that species in another life and made a contract that they were going to incarnate here in this life, and then, to be on this side of the experiment type of deal. And then there's a lot of people that it's generational. That's huge. Most people who have been abducted or think they've been abducted, because there's a lot of people that are like, well, I've got missing time or this or that. So they don't know, they don't necessarily have the memories, but they've got a family member that has had similar experiences, or they have a family member that they didn't even know had similar experiences until they brought up their own experiences, and it seems like, it's generational. Once you've kind of made that contract, then it kind of pertains to your kids, your grandkids, your siblings. You might have come in as a, like a soul family. It just kind of, everybody's different, but it seems like the biggest thing is it's generational.
Mm-hmm.
Even
with talking with people that I've interviewed, typically, especially with abductions, it isn't just that person. They do typically find out that a family member has also had some sort of experiences, but it may not be exactly the same, or some of them have vague memories of it, but they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes, say there'll be, a mom or a dad that never said anything to their kids. And then their kids start having these experiences, or their siblings' kids or whoever. And then once they start talking about it, the younger generation, then the elder will be like, well, it used to happen to me too, or this or that, and then they start talking and they can kind of, compare experiences and stuff. And that's kind of one of the things that like really makes me believe it, because like I said, if you've got, say, a grandparent, for example, that had experiences, but they never told their kids, and therefore their grandkids have no idea. And then the same thing starts happening to their grandkids, and they didn't know that was happening to, their grandparent. How do you explain that?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't. It's got to be, if they had absolutely no idea, it's got to be real,
I've often wondered if it's not something to do with genetically.
Well, there's a big thing with that too,
I know
blood types and different. Yeah. I mean, it is genetics, and that does fall into the same category as, in the family type of deal.
I've wondered, I know it's like the Rh negative, which is basically universal. And I think that's the blood that they can give to anybody.
I think O is the one they can give to anybody.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the negative or positive, but I do think that if I remember right, and I can't remember which is which, but I think one's copper based and one's iron based.
Okay.
I just can't remember if it's negative or positive, which is which.
I know from the people that I've talked to, they claim it's Rh negative. And
Rh negative is the one that everybody associates with extraterrestrials. Yeah.
And someone before had told me it's basically can be universal donor. So I don't know. I've always heard type A, type B, type O. I've never heard of Rh negative until I started doing this show. To be honest.
All that means is like if you're A positive or negative, the negative is the Rh negative.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way I think I understand that it works. But also, I think that, I fully believe that there's not just one species, that donated to our gene pool either.
Right.
I think there's probably a lot more than we'd like to believe there is. So I don't know. I'm not sure about the whole blood thing. I mean, I've heard that same thing and whatnot, but and then I've asked some of my clients, and the problem is that a lot of people just don't know their blood type. Like, I know I'm A, and I can't remember if I'm A positive or negative.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
And that's only because, I was like in the hospital a lot, some years back. But, I don't think most people know that. Unless they've had lots of medical stuff.
I've been wanting to figure out what my blood type actually is. But
you can go have it tested. You can actually send off to have it done.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you can with like your heavy metal and all that kind of stuff. They can test all that stuff.
I just had blood work done not even a month ago. So I don't know if I can actually go to when I have a follow-up appointment.
No,
in a couple weeks.
Because when they have that blood work done, they don't type you. Like if you're just going in for like, a CBC or like just whatever, like just the standard stuff that they run, unless you ask your doctor to type you, then it's not going to be in those records. They just don't do that, just for like just regular tests. You have to actually ask for it or request it.
Yeah.
And if your doctor's cool, then I'm sure they do it.
I've never had any sort of surgeries or anything like that, so I've never had to have any sort of blood, so I don't know if anyone even knows my blood type. I've never donated blood or anything.
Yeah, me neither. I can't. My veins are just teeny, teeny, tiny.
I don't like blood, which is weird because if anyone's, I don't really like blood or needles, which is hilarious because I have a lot of tattoos. I have full sleeves, and people,
that's funny that you'd be afraid of needles. It's a different kind of needle, though.
it is. Yeah,
it's definitely different. I don't have any well, I have like the permanent makeup, but other than that, I don't have regular tattoos. But it's a different kind of needle. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, so
they're a lot longer and they hurt more, I think.
Anytime that I give blood, I always turn away. They're like, "Oh, you got a lot of tattoos." I'm like, "Yep," but I'm not watching.
Yeah, they just don't get it, though. I guess I don't know. Have you ever had anybody take blood that had tattoos? You know what I mean?
Right.
They probably just don't understand. Yeah, because that's just, under the surface, it's a little bit different. But when you're like taking that big long needle and weaving it through a blood vessel, it's just a little bit different.
I've had one guy I said he was digging and he couldn't hit the vein, and they end up, I don't know, they had to give me like the orange drink because I was passing out. And then about 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, I literally did pass out. We never figured out what was going on, but I broke out in hives. I went to the emergency room and they were putting an IV in, and the guy didn't tape it down. So when he hit the vein, he started to walk away, and I looked down.
It was gushing.
I'd popped the IV out and my vein was just spraying blood, and that's the last thing I remember.
You'd hate going to the hospital with me. I have to, like, my veins are really bad, so they have to do a central line, and they always do it in my neck. And then they got to weave that piece of that wire down into your heart, and it's bad. It's really bad. Then they sew it to your neck, and it's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's not a good experience. No. I don't recommend it.
Doesn't sound very pleasant.
Yeah, no, it's not. Especially when you get that, that really mean ER doctor, and they don't numb it before they, start sewing it in, or even, they just tell you to kind of suck it up, and you're like, I wish I could reach up and punch you right now. They just have no compassion. None.
I think it's because they've had to deal with so much stuff. And
yeah, that's possible for sure.
They've just become desensitized from it, I think.
Yeah, I think some have, but then I think there's others that maybe weren't as compassionate to begin with and have become more compassionate. I think it kind of goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. I don't envy anyone in the medical field.
Me neither. That's one thing that I kind of was always interested in. And I love watching, like medical shows. And I don't mean like the stuff on like prime time. I'm talking about, the stuff where they're like actually doing surgeries and, stuff like that. But I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could. I don't know. That's just, it takes a special kind of person to do that kind of job. And I don't think I'm one of them.
I've had to pick up roadkill I used to work for the state highway department, and part of the winter operations was picking up stuff. So I've had to pick up a lot of different animals.
Yeah.
I've gotten used to that over the years, but so that stuff doesn't bother me, but there's absolutely no way. I don't say I'm a compassionate person, but I don't hunt. I don't like to kill things. I don't do anything like that. So for me, it's just never been anything that's ever interested me, and I don't want to do that. But there's just no way I could ever do any sort of blood with a human. Like if someone got hurt and they're cut or whatever, that doesn't bother me. But watching someone get cut open, like my wife when we having our children or whatever, she was laying in bed, and if I kept looking down, I'd probably be laying in the floor.
Yeah. You have to look at their face and so that, yeah, I know what you mean.
So
see, I could watch that kind of stuff. I'd be like down there going, so I'd be like in there looking and just, I don't know, that kind of stuff it fascinates me as long as it's not me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm fine with watching somebody else get cut open. The second you do that to me, I'm like screaming, crying,
Like,
just forget it.
when they, our last one, when they cut the umbilical cord, I never cut my kids' umbilical cords. I was like, nope, can't do it. And when they cut his and they were draining the blood out, and that's when I about lost it. I had to sit down next to her. She had a C-section, so she's asking me if I'm okay.
Yeah,
Here she
that's
is.
pretty bad.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, nope. I was watching them steal his blood. I was like,
I think it's just different for women because, we're always the ones that,
right.
Deal with that kind of stuff when we've got kids,
Yeah.
And so maybe we're just a little bit more used to that kind of stuff.
You can ask anybody, and I don't care who out there is listening, they can get mad at me, but for the most part, men are the biggest wusses when it comes to stuff like that. Women are.
Yeah, men are a little bit different. Yeah. You get a headache and you're crying and, but
my wife says every time
if
I'm
I
sick,
get a
I'm
headache,
dying.
it's like, suck it up.
Right. That's just how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. And I think there's probably, it's the opposite, for some people too. I don't think it's all men. I don't think it's all women either. But for the most part, yeah, guys are kind of a little bit softer when it comes to that kind of stuff. You can, like my husband, he got run over by a Ford. He ran over himself with a Ford. It's our 750, the big one, the big Kawasaki 750. He was out at about by the racetrack, and he went, and I guess I wasn't there, but he, I think went into like a ditch or something. Anyways, he went flying over the handlebars and then kind of went into the ditch, and then the 750 ran him over, like right on his head too. He's hurt from it now, but it like cut his ear open in the back, and he came home and I could tell he had a concussion. I was like, what in the heck happened to you? He's like, oh, I ran over, the four-wheeler ran me over. And you know how people are when they're concussed, they don't always make a lot of sense. I'm like, yeah, we're going to the hospital. But, a few stitches and it's just, he's such a baby. I just love it. I love him. But, if that been me, it would have been like, oh, suck it up. And I'd have been fine anyways, but not the point.
When I grew
It's
up,
definitely a thing.
it seemed like every year I was in the emergency room for something. I don't know if it's just a boy thing.
Just getting hurt a lot.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your husband ran himself over. Everyone still laughs at me because I ran my own self over with my own bicycle. And I had tire tracks across my back of my shirt because the bike kept going and it continued to run me over. But I split my head open right above my eye. And again, this is where they figured out I don't like blood. They took me into the bathroom because I was bleeding so bad. And then every time my heart would pump, it was like the blood would just come out of right above my eyebrow.
Yeah. And then it started pumping faster and more blood started coming out.
And then when I seen myself in the mirror and I blacked out because I see all the blood all over my face. And that's the last thing I remember. So it's been well documented over the years that I don't do my own blood. Like if I see my own blood, if there's a lot of it, I'm done.
Yeah. I'm okay if there's a little bit, but I don't like a lot. If I know there's like a lot, then I don't think I'd be happy about that.
It's strange because like if my elbow's bleeding or my legs are bleeding, like that doesn't bother. It's apparently my face. So if there's blood on my eyes or my face or like, I've had a nosebleed recently and it doesn't bother me. But that was the first time I'd ever passed out. Was I woke up in the middle of the night and apparently I had a nosebleed and I didn't know it. So I turned on the light to go to the bathroom and my entire face is covered in blood. And then my parents heard a thud in the bathroom and come running in there and laying on the floor covered in blood. So they're freaking out, not even sure what the hell's going on because I'm just laying there. So
that's funny. That's hilarious.
My oldest son is that way too with blood. He does not do blood very well, his own blood. So,
well, at least he has a dad that understands.
Right. Yeah.
So that's good.
When he sees blood, he's done too.
Yeah. Well, he can at least give him support for that because, it helps when you have somebody that understands. You know what I mean? For sure. So it's good he's got you. And you can help him with that. That's funny.
Before we
Poor
wrap
kids.
this one up, I was going to ask you, is there any sort of experience that you've had personally that you'd want to talk about?
So, as far as, because everybody asked me this, I was waiting for this. As far as abductions, no. But I have seen so many UFOs I can't even count. I've got one, and it blows my mind. Nobody else thinks it's a big deal for some reason, but so I was out. I mean, I've got lots of pictures of UFOs and I've seen a lot of UFOs. And living kind of in northeastern Utah, we get a lot of weird shit out here. You know what I mean? And I've seen like so many UFOs up on Diamond Mountain and like this just everywhere. They're everywhere. But one night I was out, and it's funny because maybe some people will know about this, but I started watching this show, and this was back in, it would have been 2018. And it was on Gaia, and it's called they still have it. It's called Cosmic Disclosure. But I started watching it like in the beginning. So they're having these episodes and they're talking about, like the bases on the moon and, all that stuff. And, I had known about that stuff, but I mean, they were so detailed about it. I was like, you know what? And at the time I was still doing some web design, and, I was a photographer. So I had all my photography equipment. So I'm like, I'm going to go out in the yard this weekend. And it was middle of July 18th, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to go out in the backyard. I'm going to see, that was a full moon that night, or close to it. I'm going to see if I can catch anything coming off the moon. I mean, nowadays, like people get them left and right, you know what I mean? But so I'm taking pictures of the moon, I'm doing some long exposures. I'm doing some, fast exposures. I'm just kind of messing around, and a few hours went by and I didn't really see anything. So I just decided to point my camera straight up. Really, I'm just going to point it straight up to see if I catch anything. So I took, I don't know, probably 50 pictures. And then that night, I went into my office and I turned all the lights off because I wanted to be able to see the screen and see if I saw anything that was different. If anything popped out, if there was something in one picture that there wasn't in another, you know what I mean? So I'm going through these pictures and I see this speck on this one picture. So I start zooming in, and on the picture, it was just a speck. But, I was working with the raw format. So I blew that thing up and I could not believe what I saw. It was like, and it's even on my Facebook page, or well, my personal one. It kind of reminded me of, and I know it's been in like some movies or something, but I don't know what. Almost like, kind of like a helmet on the top, like the biker, like bicycle helmets that like in the back, they kind of have that like that whoosh, like that kind of streamlined. Okay. So it was like that with the handle underneath it. Like almost like if you picture like a handle. Like, so there was like a spot underneath it, kind of almost like the Enterprise, but it didn't have that other little piece or whatever. And then at the bottom of that handle part in the back, plain as day, you can see two thrusters. Like fire thrusters, not, just whatever. So, I mean, I was like all excited, and I've showed it to people and like, even like UFO channels and stuff to say, has anybody else seen anything like this or whatever? And like, I never get a response. Like nobody thinks it's a big deal. I even sent them the raw format of it, and when nobody said anything, I'm just like, that's just weird. You know what I mean? But it's a little pixelated just because it was so small and I had to blow it up, but you can clearly tell. So anyways, to answer your question, I've got like a lot of UFO pictures and I've seen a ton of them. I, as far as I know, I've never been abducted, and I don't have any traumatic experiences, but it's just kind of, I feel like I'm part of that community. And just because, I've always kind of followed all of that kind of stuff. And so that's just kind of who I wanted to be able to help, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, they don't have anybody to talk to, you know exactly what I'm talking about since you've been there, but it just felt like more like a calling, you know what I mean? More like this is what I should be doing now.
For anyone that's interested in getting a hold of you, where should they be able to go to contact you?
Well, my website is just monicawalston.com. That's WALS as in Sam, TON.com. It's Monica Walston Quantum Healing on Facebook and Instagram. It's just Monica Walston QH. And that's, YouTube is at Monica Walston as well.
Okay. I will make sure to put links in my show notes for anyone that's interested in reaching out to you so they can get a hold of you.
I appreciate that.
I think we can probably wrap this one up, but again, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
You too, Brandon. I appreciate you.
You have a good night.
You too.